If you have been around health, fitness, and dieting for a long enough time, chances are you have heard some of your friends, some of your family having success on a ketogenic diet. And you may be asking yourself, should I take this diet up for myself? Well, I am glad you clicked on this video because we are going to talk about the truth about losing weight on a ketogenic diet. We're actually going to talk about what a ketogenic diet is, what going into ketosis does for your body, and go over the real reason why people are losing so much weight on a ketogenic diet. So make sure you stay all the way until the end of the video because we've got a lot of good information coming up. So to start out, I think an important first thing to ask is, what is the ketogenic diet? So the ketogenic diet in its entirety is essentially where you're eating very, very, very low carbohydrates. So normally on a low carbohydrate diet, that would be about 50 to 150 grams of carbs per day. A ketogenic diet is essentially where you are eating usually 50 grams or less of carbs per day. So a very small amount of carbs. And just for some perspective here, a banana is about 80 calories. So usually that would be about 80 to 100 calories. So about 25 to 20 grams of carbs roughly in just a banana. So if you had 2 bananas, that's all the carbs you're going to eat for the day. So very, very, very low carbohydrate diet. And you might be asking, okay, so what would we be eating instead of that? Well, it's of course lots of protein, usually fattier cuts of protein. So this would be like steaks, bacon. You're going to be consuming a large amount of animal fat as well. So this might be something such as butter, lard. Those are the first that come to mind. Dairy, especially ones that aren't quite as high in carbs. So cheeses and those different things. Salami, that's another one I'm thinking of. So you're essentially eating a lot of these types of things. And on the flip side, usually your carbohydrates that you're eating aren't going to be bananas or things that are very, very high in carbs. They're going to be kind of lower carbohydrate foods. So this would be basically leafy greens and vegetables. So you're going to try to be eating a lot of veggies because when you are eating this type of diet, there's not a lot of chances to get fiber. So usually when you're eating ketogenic, that's what you try to do. So that's kind of what a ketogenic diet is in a nutshell. It's very, very low carbohydrate, a high amount of animal food. You will get some carbs and you will hopefully get a lot of these carbs from vegetables. So you're getting some decent protein. Not protein, fiber, of course, because that's very, very important because a lot of people might get very constipated on this diet simply because, again, not a lot of opportunities to get carbs. But the thing that people talk about is ketosis. So the whole reason that somebody might be eating a ketogenic diet is to go into ketosis. Because as a lot of people will hear is that ketosis is where your body burns lots of fat. So this is a very interesting thing. So make sure to listen closely. So ketosis in itself is something that happens in your body when you are not taking in enough carbohydrate every single day. And what happens is instead of your body using carbohydrates as a fuel source for yourself, it is actually using ketones to burn as energy. So where do these ketones come from? Well, they actually come from fat. So it might be kind of self-explanatory for you to think, okay, that's amazing. So if I eat a ketogenic diet, ketones come from fat. That's amazing. I'm going to be losing a lot of fat. We're going to get to that in a second. But another thing I did want to mention too, that when a lot of individuals start with ketosis, they don't fully know the whole concept. So Ketosis in itself as well, I should have mentioned this, it actually happens in the liver. So basically the fat either that you eat or from your body is broken down in the liver and made into ketones, and the very small amount of carbohydrate that you might be consuming from those plant sources is going to usually be saved for fueling your brain, because your brain really prefers glucose as a source of energy. This would be broken down carbohydrate, simply because it's very quick. It gives you a lot of energy extremely quickly, and that's usually what the brain needs and wants, right? So kind of going back to this idea of, okay, so if we're burning ketones, that's great. That comes from my fat, so I'm just going to be losing all the fat. Ketogenic diet, it's a fat burning miracle. Well, here's the thing. Since you are consuming a lot of dietary fat in general when you are eating a ketogenic diet, any fat that is used, that is broken down into a ketone to be used as energy, will actually just get stored right back into your body if you are not in a calorie deficit. If you're in a calorie deficit, that's a very, very different story. So if you are somebody who burns 2,500 calories per day and you are eating 2,000 calories per day on a ketogenic diet, you will lose weight. But with that said, if you are somebody who burns 2,500, same example, but is eating 3,000 calories, even though it's very high fat, high meat, your body's probably producing a lot of ketones. The second you eat fat, it's literally getting deposited right back into your fat stores simply because of that energy balance aspect. So yes, to some degree, ketones are great. It is basically developed from the fat in our body or what we eat, but the second we eat that fat again, it's going right back on to our fat stores. So it may seem like, oh, this is a magic diet, but it really isn't, and especially if you are somebody who is over consuming on calories. But another portion of this you might be asking is like, okay, so it's not magic, then why do so many people have great success when they're eating a ketogenic diet? And why does weight loss really occur? And we kind of touched on this just a little bit ago. It's going to be consuming a little bit less of calories, but there's also one magical thing that happens with a lot of people on a ketogenic diet that also can contribute to weight loss. So stay tuned for that. The first thing that usually happens with individuals is they notice a great increase in satiety. So satiety essentially is when you feel full. And on a ketogenic diet, the types of food that are normally eaten are usually very high in satiety. So these protein foods that we talked about earlier, the types of carbs you're eating are usually very high in fiber, so those leafy green vegetables. So those two foods paired together are probably one of the most highest satiety foods on the planet, especially food combos. So when it's coming to monitoring your overall calories, monitoring your appetite, eating these types of foods will increase your satiety. Guess what happens when you increase satiety? You're not going to be as hungry for maybe other foods that are easier to overeat on. They're highly bingeable. So processed foods are kind of the exact opposite. They're very low satiety because they have very little protein for the most part and very little fiber. So they're very easy to overeat on. Usually there's some added sugars to that as well, which is kind of a totally separate tangent and side note. But usually these types of foods, so maybe you're having some eggs or some chicken breast and you're having some broccoli with it. That's a very, very high satiety meal. And when you eat those things, you can limit your calories extremely greatly. Another thing that happens so often when people are first starting a ketogenic diet is they lose a bunch of water weight. And this is one of the primary reasons why, especially when they're first starting out, they notice a large amount of weight loss immediately. So you might be asking me, how in the world does a ketogenic diet actually make you lose water weight, right? So if we think about carbohydrates in itself actually have water that bind to them. Part of it is actually kind of water-based, if you think about it that way. So when you are eating carbohydrates, it actually retains water in your body. So, of course, we're thinking about a ketogenic diet. We're not eating a lot of carbohydrates. And when that happens, guess where the water goes? It has to leave your body. This is why when people, especially if they're used to eating a very high carbohydrate, standard American diet, a lot of processed foods, etc., and they go to this very whole foods diet, high in protein, still very low in carbohydrates for the most part, all that water is just shedded from their body. So this does two things. One, on the scale, it'll actually seem like you're losing water weight, or seem like you're losing actual fat weight, but it's really just water. The second thing is when you look at yourself in the mirror, you might not be as bloated as you typically were beforehand because of that loss of water weight. So your skin might be a little tighter, and in addition to that, looking at the scale, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is progress, right? It's been like 10 pounds in 1 week. I can basically eat anything, right? Calories don't matter. Well, a lot of this weight loss in the beginning is kind of fake weight loss, if you will, which is kind of unfortunate for a lot of people, but it's so true. So when you're thinking about ketogenic diet weight loss, it's typically because of those two things. And just remember too, the diet in itself is magical, but speaking about the diet in itself, should you do the diet? Is the ketogenic diet that is going to be your best bet? Now, after watching this video, you might be thinking, okay, this guy clearly doesn't really like the ketogenic diet. Well, I will say, when it comes to weight loss and any type of diet that will lead you to weight loss, the ketogenic diet absolutely can have a place if it's done right. But the big thing about ketogenic diet that I want people to realize is that it is not a magical diet. It is a diet that usually allows people to monitor their overall portions, monitor their overall calories, and ultimately allow them to eat less. That initial weight loss is largely in part water weight, and that, in addition to kind of looking better in the mirror simply because your skin's going to be a little tighter, you're going to not have as much bloat, is usually what leads people to a lot of weight. If you are still over consuming on the calories, it doesn't matter if you're eating ketogenic, if you're eating vegan, if you're eating junk food, of course, it doesn't matter. You simply need to be in a calorie deficit. So that's going to be one of the most crucial things when it comes to this. So if you are somebody who likes these types of foods, maybe you're somebody who likes a higher protein diet, a higher fat diet, and you're good at getting vegetables in, as in you have no problem eating vegetables, this diet probably will be okay for you. With that said though, if you are somebody who is a high level athlete and you're doing a lot of high intensity exercise and activity, this might not be the best one for you simply because those types of activities largely in part require you to have usually good glucose stores in your body. So you need to have good glycogen stores to get that quick acting energy for your sports endeavors, etc. So probably not the best if you're a very high recreational athlete. Of course, this is going to depend on each individual. There's going to be variations of basically what you like and what you don't like. And you might even try this diet for a couple weeks and just see how you feel on it. And you might like some parts about it. You might notice that, hey, I do feel better when I eat a little bit more protein. I am a little more satiated. I can eat a little bit less food. And of course, over time, that's going to allow you to monitor your calories better and allow you to, of course, lose some weight. Like this video if you learned something new and it helped you out, and subscribe to the channel as we help individuals of all abilities become healthier in life and increase their knowledge of the gym. And I'm also going to link another video right now that's going to talk about how the carnivore diet might cure everything for you. A guy did it for 6 weeks and his results were shocking. So I'm going to link that right here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.